If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
The absurdity abounds. Yep, that was every candidate, except if you saw there. Former governors Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson very publicly raising their hands in a pledge of support of the now quadruple indicted ex-president if he's the eventual nominee.
The Republican primary debate was basically a race to the bottom for America. It's about who can enroll America consciousness, morality, the fastest is what you saw in that debate. Chris Christie
and Asa Hutchinson very publicly raising their hands in a pledge of support of the now quadruple indicted ex-president.
Raising his hands and pledging support of Donald Trump if he become the Republican nominee, and he is leading by an enormous number. He followed up with saying these negative things about Donald Trump, speaking on how Donald Trump conduct is beneath the Oval Office.
Stop normalizing this conduct, okay? Now whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States. And this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't.
Individuals cheer in support of Donald Trump, but they also cheer in support of the fact of him saying that Donald Trump conduct was beneath the office of the United States, because to the audience, they was thinking charging Donald Trump was beneath the Oval Office, not his actions. This is what they was cheering for.
It's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political.
Chris Christie went from "I will always protect and stand by the Constitution" to supporting someone for presidency who has promoted the suspension of the Constitution on their own Truth media page. He said regardless of political pressure, he just caved to mob pressure by agreeing to support someone who supports suspending of the Constitution. Europeans have a split tongue like a snake. They speak a dual language, but if you listen, you can hear it.
And then on Saturday, seemingly out of nowhere, called for the suspension of the Constitution as yet another attempt to overturn the 2020 election. Trump has been political.
Media account, he believed the Constitution should be suspended. When he received backlash, even from some of his own parties, then he tried to recant or give some form of clarification of why he tweeted that he believed the Constitution should be suspended. So all these so-called Republicans who's supposed to be constitutionalists is now willing to support someone who says he will suspend the Constitution. When will you see that these Europeans have no principles at all? They're about power. They're about white dominance.
Disinformation and lies, just like Russia, and all of their other hoaxes and scams. What I said was that when there is massive and widespread fraud and deception, as has been irrefutably proven, it has not been, in the 2020 presidential elections, steps must be immediately taken to right the wrong. Only fools would disagree with that and accept stolen elections. MAGA. Nice.
Republicans touted themselves as the party of law and order until the law ruled against them. Let's be clear about that. There was the party of law and order as long as law and order was being used to oppress black people. Now, the ruling of law no longer matters to the Republican Party. This is what black people have to understand, that those principles they speak about do not include you.
President Trump suffering yet another stinging legal setback tonight. A federal appeals court tossing out his election challenge in Pennsylvania. A judge the president put on the bench delivering the harshly worded opinion. Here's ABC White House correspondent Rachel Scott.
Tonight, a judge President Trump appointed himself, handing him a searing defeat in Pennsylvania, even as the president insists the race is not over.
You're going to see things happening over the next week or two that are going to be shocking to people.
But after weeks of trying to overturn the results of the election, his legal team has come up with nothing. No credible evidence whatsoever of widespread voter fraud. In Pennsylvania today, the federal appeals court ruling his claims have no merit. In a blistering 21-page opinion, Judge Stefanos Bibas writing, calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. The judge is rejecting the president's efforts to win in the courts what he couldn't win at the polls, saying voters, not lawyers, choose the president. And voters chose Joe Biden. Trump lost the election by more than 6 million votes. Still, he is refusing to concede, though he did say he would leave the White House if the Electoral College voted for Biden.
He said he'll leave the White House if the Electoral College voted for Biden. But he said that knowing he had a strategy and plan to send fake Electoral College to the White House on January 6th. So he knew he had a plan to defraud the Electoral College. So he wasn't planning on leaving because his fraudulent electors would keep him in the White House. See, rule of law doesn't matter no more for Republicans. That is a principle they use to oppress black people. It's not something they actually believed in. They understood the economic conditions that American politics had placed you in that forced you into criminal activity. And they wanted to use the law to prosecute you in order to re-enslave you. 13th Amendment. This is the strategy of these Europeans. They don't have no principles but oppressing of black people.
It's been a long 34 days since the election on November 3rd. We have now counted legally cast ballots 3 times, and the results remain unchanged.
That is Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Of course, he says both the audit and the recount reveal President-elect Joe Biden beat President Trump in Georgia by more than 12,600 votes. CBS 46's Adam Murphy is live at the state capitol, where the governor has responded to President Trump's repeated requests here, Adam, for a special legislative session. What's going to happen with that?
Well, good evening, Rick. I can tell you the governor and lieutenant governor have said at this point in time, the judicial process is the only viable option to challenge the November 3rd general election here in the state of Georgia. And they insist that is what the Trump campaign would have to do at this point moving forward. Also, the secretary.
Trump understood he had no evidence of voter fraud. It's significant to change the election. And the voter fraud that was captured, a lot of it was done by Donald Trump supporters. So he understood the courts was not an option.
Here's Terry Moran.
For all the sound and fury on Twitter and TV from President Trump and his allies about election fraud,
then we have proof that I can't disclose yet.
In the courts, where evidence gets scrutinized, authenticated, and tested, they're getting hammered. More than 24 cases have been brought, and no finding of fraud from any judge, state or federal, Republican or Democratic. Case after case tossed out, and the judges strikingly dismissive of the claims. In Michigan, Republicans claimed they had evidence the count should be stopped. The judge wasn't having it.
I heard somebody else say something. Tell me why that's not hearsay. Come on now.
In Nevada, Republican lawyers claim their observers weren't close enough. The judge snapped, "At what point does this get ridiculous?" In Pennsylvania, Trump's lawyers claimed their observers were being blocked, then admitted they were in the room. The judge, a Republican appointee, firing back, "I'm sorry, then what's your problem?" Still, the Trump campaign is bombarding supporters, sending hundreds of emails looking for money, claiming progress. This election is far from over. We're gaining momentum. We're closer than ever. It's happening.
Why the concept that white people or Republicans believe they won the election is just them empowering white supremacists. They do not believe they won the election. They just believe that blacks did not have the right to vote. All the evidence is clear that he did not win the election. So to give that any justification as if this is what they truly believe, no, that is not what they believe. They know they lost. They just feel that they were white people and that this is their country and you shouldn't have the right to vote. And any black person that stands with the Republicans don't see that is an idiot, a pure idiot. And any black person that's willing to sacrifice our democracy, give away our right to vote, which the majority of the civil rights movement was about, is an idiot and working against black people. I'm not finna empower someone who's working to depower me. That's just ignorant.
That money went to retire the president's campaign debt, and now the fine print reads that 60% of each contribution first to save America. That's Trump's own new political action committee.
And Terry Moran with us live tonight as well. And Terry, as the president fights in court, he's also refusing to begin any transition work, as we reported earlier here. And tonight, ABC News also learning that the head of the General Services Administration, a Trump appointee, she would be the one to actually get the ball rolling on any transition. There's news on her tonight?
There is, David. Emily Murphy is the head of the GSA, charged by federal law with pulling the trigger to start the transition. And she won't do it, apparently, because of these court cases. But we have learned that she is making inquiries about employment outside the government in 2021. So either she's hedging her bets or she can count. David?
All right, Terry Moran tonight.
Campaign is about to be Donald Trump's 5th federal indictment. They're gonna indict Donald Trump for how he raised that money and where he used the money for. That is about to be his 5th indictment. So even the Europeans who are being swindled by Donald Trump are idiots. But Roosevelt said it. You can swindle the European out of every dollar long as you make them think they're better than the best blacks, than the highest blacks. And this is what Donald Trump is doing. He has used racism to swindle these white people. But they hate you so much that they won't be able to see it.
It was some sort of a scam.
Last September, Russ Blatt's brother, Stacey, contributed $500 to the Trump campaign. Within a month, Stacey Blatt was bouncing checks, his bank account drained.
We saw the 6 withdrawals of $500 totaling $3,000 that had been taken from his account starting in mid-September, and over the course of a month, they took $3,000.
They'll blame black people for all the things they do not have. But one thing they will not do is hold white people accountable for robbing them. White people rob you more than anybody. Elite white people. Why are you looking for what you don't have, blaming it on black people? Your own white people, the person you love and praises, is the one robbing you.
The Blatts realized only then that Stacey was signed up to make recurring donations to the Trump campaign. Stacey Blatt died of cancer in February.
They just kept taking money out until there was no money left.
And Stacey was not alone. A New York Times investigation revealing the alarming extent and reach of a calculated Trump campaign scheme to get supporters signed up for recurring donations by default, and later adding a second pre-check box to double a donor's contribution. According to the Times, the Trump campaign internally called it a money
thing with white privilege. White people are allowed to rob you. All they have to do is point at black people. And this works even with black people. When you bring up police brutality, police murdering black people, what the first thing some black people are going to say? Oh, what about black on black crime? Why they're not marching for black on black crime? As if the system is not already targeting to lock up blacks. As if you have to march to lock up blacks. As if they're so reluctant to lock black people up. That's their argument. They come to you with stupid stuff like that.
That experts say is intentionally designed to be easily overlooked. When supporters contributed online, a yellow box to make a recurring donation came pre-checked, requiring donors who wanted to make a one-time contribution to opt out. And it wasn't easy to spot.
He didn't remember seeing anything like that. He thought he was giving a one-time $500 donation. It seemed like it was deceitful.
Thousands overlooked it, and the Trump campaign ran with it.
In the fall or the late summer, as the Trump campaign faced financial pressures, they made a really important change, which is they took that box and instead of taking donations out every month, they began taking them out every week.
Banks and credit card companies have been flooded with calls from donors, the Times reports, leading the Trump campaign and RNC to refund a massive amount of money. The New York Times reporting that from the period of mid-October through December of 2020, the Trump campaign and the RNC made more than 530,000 refunds, amounting to more than $64 million.
With a box already checked in that says you agree to continuously send out the same amount of money. They pre-marked the box so that you would have to notice it and remove the mark. You can't tell me this dude is not a scam artist. That's why the Republican Party has such a victimhood mentality. They put their trust in a scammer.
Comparison, the Biden campaign and the DNC refunded 37,000 donations, amounting to $5.6 million.
We did very well with the fundraising stuff, but a lot of it came in small donations.
The boost of money that came with the recurring donations came when President Trump was in need of it the most, just weeks before the election and short on cash.
So that money that they took from donors through recurring donations really does add up functionally to being a de facto loan with no interest from their own supporters.
And refunded only after the election with funds the campaign collected to promote baseless claims of election fraud.
Trump's so-called heart is so much of a scam artist that he paid those back he scammed with money he scammed from them again with the Stop the Steal campaign. That's how much of a swindler Trump is. I can't believe you all guys thought this dude was really a billionaire. And not only did he swindle the people, he also pardoned other people who swindled his supporters, such as Roger Steele and Steve Bannon, who tricked them out of money for the Build the Wall campaign. Millions out of his followers for the Build the Wall project, which was part of Trump's campaign promise that he never delivered, and Trump pardoned him. He even frees his cronies who suckers his support base. This is who you choose to support. The Republican debate is an example of America decivilizing.